All right, Kiss Army, welcome to the KissFAQ Podcast. Thank you for giving us your time today and letting us into your head. I hope we don't do any damage. This is a Kiss-related podcast by the board, for the board. We hope that you enjoy. Welcome to episode 241 of the KissFAQ Podcast. I'm your host, Julian Gill, admin on the KissFAQ message board. And today I'm joined by Lonnie, St. Louis Kiss.
What's up?
And Marcus Almighty Mark.
Greetings, everyone.
Let's just go through a little bit of news and updates. And Mark, it's all about you. What's going on in Project Gemini land? Because you've been popping out your own YouTube videos like crazy lately. You've had what is it, 3, I think, in the last week? And things seem to really be happening. So I know we've got a lot of people who do listen to the show who are interested. And if you're not interested, just hit fast forward to about 3 minutes from now.
Yeah, exactly. So the first thing that I think should be brought up is that I finally got the vinyl copies of the record in. And just, I don't know if anybody on here who hasn't maybe seen the update video, but just really quickly to show you, the green vinyl came. Looks nice. I love it. It's awesome. I played it. It sounds fantastic. Not a single pop or anything going on in there. I was very pleased that those guys did a great job again making it for me. Again, if you ordered in the first 50 albums, because it's only 100 run, you get the poster and you get, all those other kind of fun things with it. Also, I had an update for another thing that I did, which is that I started something called the Mark Anthony K Archive series, where I'm going back through some of my old band stuff and releases that I've done that maybe people might be interested now in picking up and hearing about. So I have my first record that I did with my band back in 1999, 20 years ago. This record came out. I did Reckon with One, Shock to the System. And I also was mentioning this cassette that I did, which was done 4 years before that in 1995. These are kind of like together in the sense that the band that was on the cassette kind of blew apart, and 2 of us from the cassette went on to make this band, and then I was in this band for like 15 years after that. And so, yeah, there's been people who've been interested in hearing this stuff, so I'm making it available now. So if you watch the video, the update video, it has all the information on, how to pick it up and the cost and stuff like that. It's not very much. It's like $8 for the CD and $5 for the tape, or if you get both, it's $10 for both together. So
and that's Canadian money, so that's like, divide by 10 and it's 30 cents.
Yeah, it's not a lot at all.
A really good value. We'll be getting, I think, joined by Ken shortly. We've all been hit by Skype updates today, and anyone who does podcasting knows. That's really cool, Mark. I thought the green looked fantastic. Very happy with how that turned out. I'm happier with how yours turned out versus Kiss World, because I got my European one in the Dutch pressing, and it's kind of flaccid yellow. It's got more of more red in it than the US one, but I thought the US yellow vinyl was like a deeper yellow. I thought it looked really cool, almost tending towards orange. So colored vinyl's tricky. I'm glad the green matched up with I guess that's what everyone voted on, isn't it? That they wanted green. So. And not only that, but I also made sure that I went through it with the guys like 2 or 3 times. They showed me an example. I was like, no, too light, no, too dark. And I mean, you have to be on top of that. Otherwise, if you just let them do it themselves, then who knows what you'll get, right? Yeah, and they had to order that specially, didn't they? It wasn't a vinyl pellets that they had in stock. So
yeah.
Well, that's excellent. And I grabbed one of those CDs today because I was going through your discography, and I'd been looking for that on eBay, waiting for one to pop up. So rather get it from the man himself. All right, what other news? Oh, I did get mail today, and this is Kiss-related, not Kiss-specific. And I got my reprint of Ken Sharp's absolutely incredible... I think it's 1995 or 1998 that this came out, The Story of Cheap Trick, and he's just done a limited reprinting in hardbound, and I'm cheap, so I got paperback. And I'd been looking for this for years, as Ken Mills last year, I think it was, made me start buying Cheap Trick albums and going through their discography, since I had none of their stuff. And Uncle Ken, A Journey of Musical Discovery of Cheap Trick, I thoroughly enjoyed. So looking forward to reading this book. All right, what else? Just a response to a Twitter inquiry of me was, what books am I planning next? None. I have zero plans for anything at the moment. I have a couple, as I said in the tweet, I have a couple of seeds planted, and they may or may not germinate. Who knows? I don't actually plan on doing any more big KISS projects. It's just my end of the road has happened. I'll do a couple of little things here and there, especially with keeping up with the tour history. And if you're coming to the Indianapolis KISS Expo next month, I will have a very limited edition of
nice.
KISS End of the Road tour leg 1, and it's just all the US dates to date, which concludes, I think, the last date's on Sunday of this leg, and then they go to Mexico for the Domination Festival, and then onward to Europe. So I think I'll do probably 100 copies of that. Come and see me at the expo. I'm not going to be bringing too many other books because, they just don't move enough these days. So it'll be on to people, and this will be the first question for the panel today. There are other books coming out. There are quite a few books that are being worked on that I can't talk about, but there's 2 that are just about ready to be unleashed on the public. First of them is Nick Buckland's hottest brand in the land. You can, of course, see on some episodes of Kiss My Collectibles with our good friends Jason and Andrew. And he's been working on that coffee table book for a long time, and I believe it's now 390 pages. So I'm not sure. I don't think he's announced a ship date on that, but again, it covers collectibles and classic era, I believe, all-coin collectibles, and we'll have to get him on when he's published that and orders are available to talk about that project. But also, Ross Rowley's Magic is expected in June. He doesn't know early or late June, but hopefully... hold on. I got Ken here. It's at Ken. All right. Hey, Ken, good to see you. Glad you could join us, of course.
Yeah, sorry about that.
That's perfectly all right. We are not on any schedule here. But what we've been talking about is which book are we looking forward to more? And I've just given a little bit of an overview of Nick Buckland's hottest brand in the land, which is due any moment, and Ross Rowley's Magic, which is highly anticipated and expected in June. And according to what Ross had mentioned online when asked about this, he's thinking it's probably towards the end of June, but he doesn't know. Nothing is apparently final at this point. So, Ken, since you were here last, I'm going to go to you first. Which one of these books are you looking forward to? Both? Neither? One or the other?
Yeah, well, I am looking forward to both of them. But Lonnie just walked off. I think he's annoyed that I joined the call or something, so he took off. But anyway, Magic, that one I'm really excited about. That one I put the order in right away. I think even the first day. I remember even the first go-round, I pledged to help that project, the first try that Ross tried to get that going. But that one, is a real chronological type thing, and I think it's going to be very thorough and a lot of, photos that we haven't seen. So
Minutia.
I'm looking forward to all that, the different costumes, minor changes, all kinds of things. So, I'm going to get both books, but that one is the one I'm really more excited about. The other one is, about the collectibles, the original collectibles and so on, which is more to me like a, coffee or whatever you want,
Well,
coffee table
he
book.
Calls it a coffee table book, so I think that's...
so there it is, yeah.
That's appropriate.
And I think it's good. And it's good to, come in and flip through and see what, oh yeah, I have that one. I have these things, and then like, oh, I never got that. These other items, and it's just kind of probably good to see those in all their high definition color that they're going to put them in. So yeah, I'm looking forward to both.
Mark, how about you?
Well, I find both books highly interesting. I'm like Ken. I'm kind of more interested in the Ross Radley book. because I'm, more into the minutia stuff about the costumes and, the guitars and all these other things. He said that he's gone into great detail with many, many aspects of the band, like even studio pictures and all kinds of stuff from that time period. So I'm very much looking forward to that. I think Nicholas's book is really cool. I mean, I'm a regular watcher also of the Kiss My Collectibles, so I always see whenever he has those updates where he talks about a new piece that he's acquired for the book or something that's going to be in the book. And I always find those fascinating, but as you guys know, I'm not really a big collector of, the dolls or any of those other things like pajamas or blankets or anything like that. I just usually collect just vinyl, and the dolls that I do have were given more to me as presents from family, so I don't really go out and seek them. But if I have a chance to get the book at some time, I will probably pick it up. But they are probably pretty hefty books to get, so shipping them to Canada will be probably pretty pricey. But I am definitely gonna go for the Ross Radley book for sure.
Yeah, I think I want to see what Ross has done. Having, we've known about this project for so long. I want to see it finally in reality. And I want to see people complain about, I've seen that photo before, so that Ross can say, no, you haven't. It's from the same photo shoot, but look at so-and-so's hands lifted up, that sort of stuff.
Right.
Because people are just lining up to pick apart his book, because it's been such a long and arduous process and such an ongoing thing for so many years. So I'm looking forward to that. I couldn't give two shits about collectibles and Aucoin era stuff. That's just never been my niche. I've never had any interest in it whatsoever. But I can't wait to get the book, because you know what? I want to look at it. I want to look at this stuff and, kind of see. Again, I have no idea how his layout tells the story, or whether it's just page after page of just this, if it's sequential, how it's organized. I just want to look at the merch that's never going to be in my collection, but I'll have it in a book not on the coffee table, because I don't kind of leave Kiss books out, but so I can just go back and look at it, and when someone actually talks about it, if I don't know what they're talking about, I've got a reference book, hopefully, that's got that sort of information in it. So, from either of them, with Kiss Alive Forever, we've seen a lot of the tour dates, and also my own books, obviously, so I don't know how much of that's going to be of interest in Ross's, unless he's come up with something new about that information that adds to Kiss Alive Forever, adds to what I've done. But I think the day planner type stuff is what I really look forward to in Ross's, that someone's going back and hopefully organizing a lot of the stuff that sits in the 8,000 or 9,000 pages of memos that I've got in my collection, and presents it in something that makes sense. So, both are, to me, equally interesting. Ross, I know a bit better than Nick, so he gets the edge just because, we've had him on the show a couple of times, and I've spoken to him quite a few times on the phone. So, I think any project's going to be valuable for Kiss fans in some way or the other. Again, like me, if you're not interested in the stuff, just look at the pictures. Nothing wrong with that. All right, while we wait for Lonnie to return, let's just dig into we're going to do some topics on the board today, if anyone's wondering what our topic is. We're also going to talk about the new Classic Rock magazine that's just been published, but I want to wait until Lonnie gets back on that. I don't think he'll mind missing a few of these little micro topics. So one of the other topics on the board in the past week or so is poll number 26, Sonic Boom, favorite song. So without overthinking it or having ties, Ken, what would be the first song that pops to mind from Sonic Boom that you like?
Well, I put down, I think I answered it, but it was a hard one. I just went with Modern Day Delilah, because I just think that's a great song. It was it was an obvious choice for a single, even though what is it? Say Yeah, it was turned out to be a great song and works in concert. But I just like Modern Day Delilah better as a song, and the riff in it. I enjoy that better than the other songs that are on the album. Most of them.
Cool. Lonnie, we're doing favorite song from Sonic Boom. What's yours?
Yes, I Know. It's my favorite song off of there. Without a doubt. It may be, I think it's the best song that they've done since Revenge. And I think it may be the best song they've done, period, since Revenge. I think Yes, I Know is amazing. And I think it's a shame that it was never even tried in concert. It has a very 70s style feel to it. It sounds like it could have been on Rock and Roll Over even. So I think it's my favorite. I mean, you asked me that. I mean, without hesitation, without a doubt, that's my favorite song on that album. Why is everyone laughing? You guys bad-mouthing that while I was on the phone with my boss, or what?
No. I mean, that's alleged to have been a Asylum outtake, but I think Gene.
Yeah.
I think Gene says that he wrote it in the late 70s. And it wasn't on the vault, and that's bummed me out when we did get the vault, that was one of the songs that was MIA. I really wanted some high-quality, well, to some who are already rolling on the floor laughing, high-quality Asylum demos.
Better quality.
Yeah, mock me mercilessly. But that's what I was hoping for. A big multi-track of that one would have been very cool. That's a great pick. I went for All for the Glory.
Mm-hmm. That's a good song too. Just
because I didn't want to go with Say Yeah, just kind of tired of that. I like that of the two songs, Tommy and Eric were given to kind of do their own thing. I just like the opportunity for Eric to sing on an album again, so it still has a different kind of vibe to it. Mark, finish us up on this topic. What's your favorite?
Well, the interesting thing is that for once, I'm right on the same page with Lonnie. I love Yes, I Know as well. Ever since the very first time I heard that song, I was very shocked. I was like, wow, this is probably one of the best Gene songs I've heard in a long, long time. And and every time I put this album on and I hear it, I was like, this is always the one that I think is the top song on here. No matter what. I mean, I like it better than Modern Day Delilah. I like it better than Say Yeah. I think it's much more catchier. To me, the biggest shame of it is that they don't play it live. I mean, it's such a great song. Why don't they do it? I think it's a standout song.
I was really surprised when they did the hottest show on earth in the summer of 2010, and they incorporated a Gene song into the set list finally from Sonic Boom, and they chose I'm an Animal, which just seemed to just plunge along.
Right.
And it was just like, oh my gosh, is this over yet? The whole time they played it. So I was surprised that they went with that over Yes, I Know, because I think Yes, I Know is the best song on the album.
Oh, yeah.
I'm
surprised. And it's a more up-tempo Gene song. I mean, come on.
Yeah, I'm surprised you guys chose the Gene song since, and I didn't, because I'm the Gene guy here, and you guys are more, the Paul or Ace or whatever. But I like that song, but I think he's written a lot better songs than that. That's just my opinion on it.
Fair enough.
It's a good song. Still, it is a good song.
It's a good song. I think
he's done a lot better.
I think it's an underrated album. All right.
I think it is, yeah.
I agree.
So before Lonnie takes another phone call, why don't we talk a little bit?
I can't
yeah, you got it. My phone's right here too, so I'm the
I
one
can ignore most people except him.
I've been known to walk off in the middle of the show to go get my UPS packages. But I mentioned at the top of the show that the new Classic Rock magazine has come out and now is available to anyone who can actually find it, especially those who have Barnes & Noble. I'll be giving away this copy during this episode, so do stay tuned to find out how you can win it, though it is obviously opened and used. But you'll get the poster, the sticker, and the CD of non-Kiss songs included in it. Everything that came in it. So you've had a chance, hopefully, to read the feature. It's not a full magazine on the band, which I'm kind of bummed about. I thought with the cover's just going to have to be good enough, and it's a shame that it's Destroyer on the cover rather than a current photo of the band. But Mark, what was your main takeaways from the feature, and what did you think of it overall?
I thought it was pretty good. I did enjoy reading it. It was nice that they they kind of touched on everybody a little bit, like they talked with, Eric, and they talked with Tommy a lot in there as well, got his aspect on some stuff. And I like too that it wasn't just a whole polishing their rear end kind of article, they kind of also brought up some stuff that, might be some food for thought, like how they talked about the fact that even though Paul and Jean keep saying that their relationship is the best that it's ever been now and that they're best buddies and stuff like that, but yet they still travel in separate SUVs. They're never beside each other in photos whenever they take stuff, that when you see them, all the signs point that they have some kind of a strenuous relationship, but they swear that that's not the case. So I like those kind of little things that they mention in these articles. It's not always just, Kiss is awesome and that's it. They kind of give you some thoughts, things to think about, So I really liked the article for that. And I thought the photos were really cool. I thought there were some fantastic photos that they used in there. I mean, I'm not a big expert on photos, so I don't know if some of these photos were, used before or not, but for me, I thought that they were very good. I liked everything that was there. I thought the layout was really nice. And like, again, I was glad, though, that they talked with Tommy and with Eric, because usually now whenever you see a Kiss interview, it's always Paul or Jean.
Yeah, absolutely. Lonnie, what were kind of your overview of what you were able to digest from it?
No, I agree with Mark. I do like the fact that it included Tommy and Eric's perspective in there as well. And a decent amount of Tommy and Eric's perspective at that. But to me, it was a lot of the same shtick and the same, we have this many trucks on our tour and it's, this and that. It's the same type of recycled stuff at the same time too. But there are some good pictures in there. I like the fact that there's even a picture of Eric Carr in there, which is nice to see, because I don't think Eric gets to do justice he deserves at all. I mean, I mentioned it when I talked about the show that I went to, that you hardly even see any kind of past footage and anything about Eric whatsoever. So I think it's nice that there's at least a picture of Eric Carr in the article. I don't know. It didn't really just get me going a whole lot. It's just I don't know. Just a little bit of white noise to me. That the cover's really cool. The cover's actually really cool. I mean, the Destroyer cover is actually really cool, and had me thinking maybe the whole thing's about Kiss, but of course it wasn't. Oh yeah, Ken Kelly. Who wants to see that cover? It's just terrible. Yeah, it's fine, but it's a lot of the same. It's a lot of the same recycled material, though. Really.
Yeah, but what I meant though was that the person who wrote it, I thought, brought up some interesting points. I mean, Gina and Paul, they always bring up the same thing. We had the biggest show. I don't care if you're Paul McCartney. If you have bombs, you thank us. It's always that kind of stuff, right? But I meant that the person who wrote the article, I thought, did a good job of bringing up some different things.
Well, the person who wrote the article is Janilewski, alum of Cream magazine in the 70s, who did the seminal feature, I Was on Stage with Kiss in My Maidenform Bra. So I thought that was absolutely insanely cool to kind of bring it back full circle to one of the big, the super big first, kind of press things that the band had. She covered a lot of really kind of deep topics, talking about Naris in October 74 and how Peter didn't even have a nameplate. It was just the other three, and using that as a metaphor, for him not getting kind of the respect that the other members of the band get. She talked drugs with Gene, which Gene talking drugs about the hash brownie incident. And we've read about those before, but this wasn't saccharine. This wasn't watered down. That it was kind of made into a joke in some ways, especially with his, now connections with the cannabis industry. I thought that was kind of interesting to go there. But for me, I think the most melancholy part of this whole thing is, number one, they had to put the original Kiss lineup on the cover for the End of the Road feature, which is it's promoting this band's visit to the UK, and you have to remember what it's promoting. I really think Tommy and Eric should have been on that cover, regardless of whether they've been on it before. But the current lineup should have been there, not Destroyer. I think that's really kind of lame. As great as Destroyer is compared to anything that this current lineup has done, you just can't measure Sonic Boom or Monster against Destroyer. Sorry, Mark, just cannot. But going back to my biggest takeaway from this is Tommy. And it really ends with, finally, I'm not the new guy. And earlier on in the piece is, maybe they'll like me now. Which I was just so saddened by his awareness that there is a sector of the KISS army that have never accepted him. You know, less so than Eric wearing the makeup. And while I think he deals with it admirably, I mean, he's a better man than I would be in a similar situation if, you know, I had put up with nearly 20 years of the abuse that he's taken from a very fucking small percentage of fans, but they're magnified. You know, it's like all the shit that goes on anywhere on Twitter or Instagram, or, you know, the small mouths are, you know, magnified the most. But for this to be about the end of the road, that kind of knocked it off the track of being a celebration. So I thought that was incredibly sad that still obviously rankles, regardless of what he says, because otherwise it wouldn't be in there. I thought it was fascinating, the kind of Paul Stanley's, how he comes across in there, you know, pick up the pedals. They're going to stain the plane, and we've got it for a while, so let's keep it nice. I thought the analogies of, you know, it doesn't matter whether you're driving an 18-wheeler or a car, someone's got to be the driver because you're all going the same place. I love that sort of stuff because they didn't throw in the usual sort of we wear more makeup than your mommy shit. So I thought it was eye-opening, but nothing particularly new. But just, again, it comes back to Tommy for me. Ken, you know, what were your takeaways with it?
Yeah, a little bit of everything what all of you guys said. I mean, yeah, there are some things that, yeah, it's been covered before, and I know that already, or, you know, I've read it a million times. But there were some new perspectives on some of the topics that they, you know, went deeper into, like you said, you know, the Brownie incident and so on. And then, yeah, I agree, Tommy. I mean, he said, you know, they'll like me, you know, after it's over, basically. And I thought, oh man, you know, he still doesn't feel, you know, liked or appreciated, I guess. But he's hoping that maybe he will be after all is, you know, done. The other thing is the thing that Eric Singer said about saying when it's all over, he's not going to miss a thing, which is, I thought, well, that's interesting. I guess because he said it's just such hard work for him. And so, yeah, I'm really surprised that he said he's not going to miss anything. Interesting. The other thing about Tommy that's interesting is about, you know, Gene sits on the front of the plane and Paul at the back, and Tommy's in the middle, and he's like the buffer. I think he's the buffer, been the buffer between them for many years.
He's Switzerland, they say in the article.
Yeah, they call him Switzerland. Yeah, as a joke, they call him Switzerland. So, I think, and he didn't want to go into that too deeply, but I think there's a lot that he has to kind of, you know, keep them from, you know, killing each other. I think in some cases, you know, he's that buffer, that mediator. Yeah, the mediator. So otherwise, yeah, it was a real good article. Yeah, great pictures. So yeah, there should be more maybe articles like that in the future.
And that's where it all comes from. You know,
yeah,
the war is over.
Stanley.
We won, which is
that was
Paul Stanley, and it's the context of that is also somewhat sad because it talks about Gene and Paul being at war with one another. You know, fighting for the heart and soul of the band, maybe, or its direction, or, you know, just fighting as, you know, they like to call each other brothers, but come on, they're not. They're just business partners in some ways. But to think that, kind of summing up the end of the road as being the war is over, we won, as in KISS won, not the fans.
KISS won, yeah.
But Gene and Paul won. Because, you know, they basically get all the money, they've got all the control, they've got everything. There'll always be a partnership together that Peter and Ace are not a part of anymore, that Tommy and Eric were never a part of, in the sense that they're employees. And again, I'm not interested in their business relationship with the band whatsoever. But if Tommy's Switzerland, what country is Eric?
I don't know.
That's a good question, actually.
I have no idea.
Where they talk real fast and they're going to flip from one thing to another very rapidly. Eric was very cool in that. I thought his outlook on this whole situation is something that's really worthy of a follow-up. Just him on his own. His attitude of, he's not going to miss it. I'm like, why? How can you be sure? I mean, I know he's going to be 61 this year, next month, in fact. Right. And it can't get any easier doing what he does. You look at how much older is he now than Peter was during the farewell tour? Peter was, 50? Or 55. So Eric still has several years on what Peter was, though obviously he hasn't had the physical problems that Peter Criss has had. Peter was battling problems with his arms, muscular, deterioration and whatnot, let alone any of the other things that people pull into all of these discussions. So I can get how he won't miss it from, having to stay skinny or stay in shape or just how much of a grind it is on the road. But will he really not miss it? Being part of the, a band, and this will be another topic that we talk about, regardless of its success commercially, record sales wise, it's certainly a massive band in terms of its commercial success, licensing, and in terms of identity. Will he not miss that?
I honestly think that the one thing that he does miss is back, think about it, back when he was with Alice Cooper, he didn't have to put on any of the makeup and costumes and stuff like that, like how he has to do as much with Kiss, right? And I'm guessing that drumming with Alice Cooper in that sense was probably a little bit more, I'm gonna be careful here and say maybe a bit more fun for him, because you know what I mean? Like when you don't have to put on all that stuff or wear these kind of vests and stuff, he pretty much wore whatever you wanted. I kind of got the feeling when he was with Alice, So maybe that's what he's kind of meaning. Maybe he means that he's just kind of hoping to get back into a situation maybe where he can play something that just requires him to be in regular kind of clothing, doesn't have to wear makeup every night, doesn't have to go do all these meet and greets and stuff. Like, who knows? Maybe he's just getting tired of some of those things. Maybe to him it's just become like a treadmill, that it's just the same thing all the time, right? I mean, we as fans complain about Kiss in many ways like that too. Like the set list is always the same. Maybe he's getting tired of playing the same songs all the time. Who knows? It could be so many things. He didn't get into great detail about what he meant by that. It would have been nice to have heard what he meant with that,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's definitely one of the things that, I mean, you just mentioned Alice Cooper, and I must say, and this is a call out to, people who don't listen to other podcasts, this latest episode of Three Sides of the Coin, where Russ, go and listen to it, go to the 16-minute mark. Russ talks about Eric Singer on tour with Alice Cooper in August 1991. He specifies that it's Philadelphia Spectrum, which would mean August the 11th. And Eric, bringing him backstage or communicating with him during that show and making Russ miss Judas Priest, who was opening, that he had become the drummer for Kiss in 1991. And he already knew he was the new drummer of Kiss in August of 1991, which I think is just insane. I know the timeline's, been debated and fluid or everything, but those are the sorts of gems that you get out of listening to these other shows and listening to people talk about their personal experiences. I mean, go there, listen to it for yourself. It starts about 16 minutes. But I think with Eric and Alice Cooper, I never saw him, so I would have thought that he operated under a very similar sort of restraint, that he had to drum appropriately for the music that he was playing, which included a lot of 70s stuff like he does in Kiss. But they had, they had Hey Stupid, and was Trash out by that point, or did that come out? I don't know.
Yeah.
So
because he was in for Dragon Town and all that stuff, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Ken.
Yeah, so that, I did listen to that, it strikes me as, that happened a few months, right, or a few months before Eric Carr died, which is just like, no wonder then Eric was freaking out about saying he's going to be out of Kiss, or he did know he was out of Kiss, and it seems Gene and Paul didn't want to wait around for him, or maybe they knew the prognosis was so
bleak.
Bleak that there wasn't a way he was going to come back. I don't know. It's just kind of like. It's kind of tough to wonder what happened.
It makes me wonder though about when you hear stuff like that, it makes you wonder even further about what those guys have said in the past. Because if he already knew back then that he was going to be in the band, I mean, I don't think that they ever said anything about that long after, right? That he became into the band. So I mean, I don't know. It's these kind of behind the scenes things are sometimes upsetting because, you'd like to think that they would have stuck with Eric until the bitter end, but it almost seems like they were ready to give up on him before it happened,
Yeah, so Lonnie, we'd moved into the three
it's
side
kind of,
segment.
Yeah, I think it's kind of sad and depressing that we've heard things about them being ready to move on from Eric before Eric had passed, and I think to hear that was eye-opening and made you take a step back a little bit, that as long as Eric had been in the band and as long as important of a role that Eric played throughout his time with the band, that they were ready to move on from him that quickly. And what you guys said, maybe the prognosis was that bad that, if he does survive this, the touring lifestyle of Kiss is not going to be something that's going to benefit him moving forward. It's not something he's going to be able to do moving forward if he does survive this.
Yeah.
And it may be cold, but you can also say, well, it's not personal, it's business too, that they have to look out for their own business as well. I mean, you guys work. I mean, you guys know that if someone's not available to work or someone's not here because they're sick, well, we can't just stop. We have to keep going, just like anything else. And you can say, well, it's a band. Well, it is their livelihoods at the same time too. And at the time in 91, they didn't exactly have the bankrolls that they do now.
Right. That's
true.
What
I mean? So I mean, they had to keep going. So you can look at it from both sides. That it was cold that they said, Eric's our new drummer even before Eric had passed, but you can look at it as like, what, they have to take care of themselves too. So
yeah, I think that just with how the timeline works, we're never going to know it all. I don't think any of us want to know it all, especially when it comes to this dark period. But Eric had his hemorrhage, which put him into hospital for the final time because until October, I believe it was. And again, I'm fact-checking myself in the middle of this because we know he went to the MTV Awards in September. Yeah. So he was still vertical at this point. He'd done the video in July, I think, that God Gave Rock and Roll to You too was filmed. So they saw him without wig and how emaciated, how much muscle mass he'd lost from illness. And, anyone who looks at that video, I mean, you can just tell he's fighting. But maybe it was too much for him to do, to show up for a full day of filming just to prove that he was still in the band. And maybe it was, it may sound harsh, and again, this is all conjecture, not fact. Maybe it's stop worrying about being in the band. You're not in the band anymore. Focus on getting better and living.
Yeah.
And then we just don't know what happens afterwards. But if Eric was really in the band at that point, we know he'd come in before Alice Cooper went on tour to do all the drum tracks for the album. Then they bring Kevin in to fix the one that hadn't worked out. So from that perspective, he was already gone from the band for this album. So I think it's a very difficult thing, and it's got to be very difficult for Eric Singer as well. Because he's a journeyman at this point. He's working with Badlands, hoping that it's gonna take off. But he's in the studio with the Cult, helping out on demos. In the period, he's gone out on tour with Paul Stanley, just as a gig while the rest of the Badlands finishes recording that album. And then, he's out of Badlands. He's got an opportunity with Alice and, all these other things. He's just working.
Mm-hmm.
And to have someone die wouldn't have been easy for Gene and Paul, regardless of, I don't really care. If they fired him because it was going to affect insurance, that unfortunately is harsh. But it is business, as Lonnie said. Business is merciless. But I don't want to get bogged down into this. It's just so depressing. I've been listening to a lot of Eric. I'm working on something, one of those seeds, and listening to a lot of Eric Carr interviews lately, and I must say it's just a horrendous thing to try and even put paper to pen after hearing him talk about things and fighting his battle with his health at this time. Eric Singer did nothing wrong, and even if he's even if he's in the band by then, I just think it's more interesting that this is a nugget that just came out in another podcast, and Three Sides did a great job. And Russ, I've met him a few times, is a very cool guy and had a lot of really good stories. So get over, for those people who don't listen to all of the shows, this is one that's worth really listening to because there's a lot of good stuff in it, as was the one the week before. All right, let's get back to our show. And another topic from the board is: are you shocked that Peter Criss has become the voice of reason? Sorry, Ken, he might have taken your title there. He looked good in the photo. Right. He was recently photographed at a cancer benefit holding up someone. Obviously, he just happened to have a copy of Alive with them. And he's holding it up, and he looked fantastic. But he's also not saying much at a time when Gene and Paul, Gene sticks his foot in his mouth regularly. That's just what Gene does. Peter stays quiet. Are you surprised that Peter right now has said the least amount of stupid, offensive, annoying, or idiotic things? Lonnie.
I think, we've all read Peter's book, and Peter had a lot to say in his book, criticizing Gene and Paul. And I think Peter got it off his chest, and it's kind of refreshing that at this stage, Peter's just taken the high road and not said anything back, or has not made statements like the gloves are coming off, things like that. Peter's just taken the high road and said, you know what, I'm not going to drag myself down and be a part and get in the mud. I know who I am. I think Peter's very comfortable with who he is at this stage in his life and is very happy with his life at this point. And why get myself mixed up in that? I'm proud of what I've done with KISS in the 70s. I'm proud of what I did when I came back in KISS in the late 90s and early 2000s. And, let them get in the mud. I'm going to stay up here. And good for him.
Here, Mark.
Yeah, I think that he's doing a smart thing, actually, because it kind of seems like he's one of these guys who is enjoying his retirement from music kind of thing, like from performing end of it, because it seems like he's enjoying going to these fundraisers and to these kind of convention things, and meeting fans and taking pictures and stuff like that. It just seems like he's more happy with what he's done. He's probably happy with his, day-to-day situation, probably. He doesn't have to worry about this kind of crap going on, going back and forth. He's just staying out of it, and I think that that's best for him. I mean, no unnecessary stress. I think he's doing a very smart thing, to be quite honest with you. Why get mixed up in all this stuff? It's not going to benefit him in any way. He's not promoting any kind of a record or anything, so there's no need for him to get himself involved in those kinds of things. So I think that it's a good idea for him to kind of stay low and enjoy the fans, coming up to him with records and getting him to sign stuff. I think that he's kind of enjoying that kind of time now.
So Ken, from one voice of reason to another.
Yes. Well, he said, I remember when we went down to the LA KISS Expo, right, a couple of years ago. I remember him talking before the actual meet and greet thing happened, and he was on the stage in a quick interview, and he was talking about how he was at peace with everything, and it's not worth it to sweat all that small stuff. Basically, he was at peace. It is what it is. It all happened. It's in the past, and he was happy to move on from it all. So that's why I think he's still at that point, and he does not want to get mixed up in the the arguments between Ace and Gene and Paul touring or any of that stuff. Just let it go and just let it go, basically. So yeah, he's doing the right thing, I think.
Yeah, it's a little bit like The Godfather, though. Just when I thought I was out, they pull me back in with all these negatives and the same old shit. You got to remember, this cat's the guy who used to shoot Christmas trees. So while I prefer him to be the voice of reason and to stay above it all and not lower himself to it, I could also see him shooting a Christmas tree verbally and just going, "What the fuck?" I can't do a Peter Criss voice to save my life. But if you think of me saying that in his voice and just letting rip, I could get it. But I hope he just stays above the swamp, so to speak. All right. We were with you, Ken. Let's go to your topic. The trend is your friend. Talk about it. And what do you want?
Yeah, well, I was thinking about. Yeah, it was a topic where Paul was managing somebody, and he told him that Paul said that the trend is your friend. So meaning that if you're going to, I think, do a certain kind of music at that time period, you want to go with whatever's trending at the time. So I was thinking, okay, yeah, Kiss did that quite a bit throughout the years, and then there were things about AC/DC never did it, that sort of thing, and they're kind of one of the few that didn't really follow a trend. But I was thinking, well, okay, what are some of the major trends that Kiss did or didn't do? And I don't think their first album was really a trend. I can't pick a trend that they were trying to go at. I think they were just, all their influences were kind of mixed on that album. But definitely Hotter Than Hell, you had maybe more like a Black Sabbath type thing, maybe a trend, a little bit of that in there. And Just to Kill was kind of, again, that one doesn't seem like a trend. It was just trying to be more radio friendly there.
Well, it was trendy, wouldn't you say? Because it was bubblegum, and it was,
yeah. Trending.
It was Neil's trend.
Yeah, well, it was less bubblegum than Unmasked. I mean, for instance, that was real trendy. Now, Mark's favorite, Destroyer. I thought they were trending. It was a Bob Ezrin trend, which is, I also think it was a trend like $1 Billion Babies. It had that same sound. Those albums have a lot of the same sound, guitar sounds, and so on. So that was a trend there. However, I don't think it was a trend. I do not think that was a trend. I think that was just them rocking and being raw, like they wanted to be in the first place. So that was some of them. I don't want to go through all of them. I mean, there's a lot more, obviously, throughout the years, but it kind of made me think about, they did a lot about their career, or maybe more than half their career, they followed the trends. I don't know if it's right or wrong, but that's what happened.
Lonnie, is the trend your friend?
Oh, it was definitely Kiss's friend. I mean, and Ken went through some of the 70s albums, but if you look at the 80s with what they did with Crazy Nights and really following a Poison, Bon Jovi type of feel in that era, with what they did with Carnival of Souls is obviously a trend with following the grunge. With, people can say that Revenge was was a trend too, with getting back to more of a metal sound with what was popular with Metallica and things like that at the time. And Dynasty with Paul said, this is easy to write a hit. Paul talked about writing I Was Made for Loving You and how easy it was going to be. Following a trend there with disco. So yeah, I think Kiss definitely said the trend is your friend. And, to each their own. Everybody has their own tastes and albums that they like and albums that are their favorites versus albums that they don't like. So,
but do you think
if you're gonna make it, you have to go with what's trendy. I mean, don't have to, like you said, AC/DC.
Yeah,
kept their sound pretty true throughout.
So, is it possible though that maybe if they didn't follow a trend, would they have, been
left in the dust?
The dust, or been better for sticking it out and trying to create their own trend or style.
The problem is though with Kiss is that once they realized that they were not on the top of the heap anymore, and that there were other bands that have passed them, like bands that had opened for them prior had now gotten above them now. That's when they started, thinking to themselves that they had to start following trends. That was the only time I thought that they did, like the Crazy Nights times, even Revenge, when they had that, in that book I read where they said that they had like this guy going around and trying to poll the audiences, what they would like to hear from Kiss. And like they were really trying to, gauge what the audience would want from Kiss. Because, at that point they were uncertain of what to do. And that's when you start following trends. That's the one main difference I've always seen with Kiss, is that when they were in the 70s and they were kind of doing their own thing, or their own-ish thing, right? That they were very confident in their direction then. And as soon as things started going awry for them, then they started getting a little uncertain of themselves, and then they started following things, Yeah. And then that's when it starts all going awry, because that to me kind of shows that you don't have confidence in your direction and your songwriting, I mean, we keep bringing up AC/DC, but that's a great example of it, because they know how to write their music. They only know how to seem to write one style of music, but they're good at it, so they stick with it. And their fans love it. They don't want to hear any kind of, more commercial thing or more progressive thing or more heavier thing. They want AC/DC stuff. It's the same thing with Iron Maiden now. When Iron Maiden releases a record now, you know what you're getting. You're getting 8-minute long songs. You have choruses that are repeating one line 4 times in a row. It's just their formula is set. But Iron Maiden fans wouldn't want it any other way. You know what I mean? So they've kind of etched their sound. And that's kind of the thing that Kiss had trouble with in the 80s. Is they didn't just say, you know what, this is Kiss, this is what we're about, and we're just sticking with it.
Yeah, I think, AC/DC obviously hasn't done a ballad since their first album, Love Song, which I absolutely love, because it's the only kind of AC/DC song that's completely different from any other AC/DC song. But I think, Paul's talking about what was working for him in 1989-ish, I think. Benny Doro was who he told this to, and I can't even remember the name of the band he was associated with. Sorry, Benny. But by the late 80s, the trend was Paul Stanley's friend, because they were following one trend after another, trying to stay current, trying to, pull attention off those bands that were, doing it. If you can't be an innovator, then be hype. If you can't be a hype, follow a trend. I mean, you're just getting on the bandwagon, and it was working for Kiss. They, after The Elder, which was following a trend in Bob Ezrin's concept albums, or Destroyer, which was following a trend, as I think Mark said rightly, about it just was a carbon copy of a model that Bob had used with Alice Cooper successfully. By the mid-'80s, 82, Creatures is again following a trend, the new wave of British heavy metal, the kind of Saxon, the Iron Maiden albums, the heavy through and through, a Motley Crue album in some sense. Lick It Up was then, slightly more polished version of that, more melodic rock, like the Night Rangers. I mean, just think of Night Ranger, opening act on Creatures of the Night Tour, then on Lick It Up, they're doing more melodic. I mean, You Can Rock in America, listen to that first Night Ranger album. It's fucking brilliant. It's a great album. No wonder some of that rubbed off. Why would they copy Wendy O. Williams, who had also opened up when, she'd basically used their stuff. So, 85, they're doing the glam thing, copying. The Rats had done it, 83. Motley did it at the same time. But, again, the trend, I guess, from that perspective is your friend, in that it may not rocket you to the high atmosphere of success, but it's certainly good in terms of attaining a reasonable level of success. from which to make a living. So that's what I get. As far as Kiss being a trend follower, I think that they've unabashedly done anything it takes to go 45, 50 years. And, 74, they were the hype of 74, so there was no trend for them to hop on at that point. And that's probably why I love that album so much. Same with Rock and Roll Over. Being the reactions that they were to what they were doing. They weren't chasing trends at that point. But in the 80s, that's when I became a fan, and those albums are always going to be critically important to me, more so than maybe an originals fan who got to follow them sequentially and get tortured by that after, Imagine being a guy who bought Alive, Dressed to Kill, and the joy of all that, and then having Asylum, Crazy Nights, and all that kind of dross that came later. So that's the sentiment that I get out of that.
But also the other thing you have to keep in mind too is as you get into the 80s and later in the 90s, the time period between recording a record and then a record company releasing it got larger and larger. Back in the 70s, you could record a record 3 months later, it could be released. In the 80s and 90s, you record a record, sometimes you have to wait 9-10 months before it comes out. So that trend that you're following has already been long done by the time your record comes out. So the trend that you followed was kind of pointless at that time. Over. Yeah, so that's why it's almost like better not sometimes to follow the trend, because unless you can foresee a trend happening, then you're going to be screwed, right?
Yeah, like grunge or Carnival of Souls.
Carnival of Souls is a great example. It came out years too late.
Yeah, or Revenge for that matter. If you think of how beautifully crafted it is as an album and what they got out of it in terms of its performance. Completely, and obviously that was out of their hands with what happened with Eric and the deliberate delay. So, I said I was going to give away this copy of Classic Rock. So, to enter, as always, just email KissFAQ@outlook.com, and all you got to do is put in that message, Lonnie's favorite song from Sonic Boom. And you'll be entered into a random drawing to win that, and it's open to anyone worldwide. So if you've not managed to get a used copy of that, just enter that contest. Why don't we go into one final topic for today from this group of topics from the board. And I like this one. It jumped out at me. It's when you think of the quintessential demon song, do you automatically think evil, like God of Thunder, Almost Human? Or do you go to I Get All the Ladies route with stuff like Calling Dr. Love or Ladies Room? So Lonnie, quintessential demon song. Are you dirty or are you evil?
Quintessential demon song, I always go to the God of Thunder, War Machine route. When I think of Jane, I think of the demon, and I think of the blood spewing, fire breathing demon. So I always go the War Machine, God of Thunder, Almost Human, I'm an Animal even type of route. Unholy. Those are my quintessential Gene songs for sure.
Nice. Mark, how about you? I mean, I know you go throw on a copy of Destroyer, but
right, he goes and turns on Sweet Pain.
Well, see, for the longest time, I used to always think, when I thought Gene Simmons, I used to always think Unholy, because I thought, to me, that was one of his perfect songs that was written for him. But when I think nowadays of Gene Simmons, I think of it more from a complete songwriting aspect, where he did Unholy with Vinny, right? So that's kind of a joint effort. To me, quintessential Gene Simmons is Calling Dr. Love. It's a completely written song by himself. He's only credited himself in writing it, and it has Gene Simmons written all over it lyrically, the song, and it has by far the best Ace guitar solo ever. So to me, this is a no-brainer for me. I think Calling Dr. Love is the quintessential Gene song.
Oh, that's contrary and surprising. How about you, Ken?
Yeah, well, I have to agree with Mark. Calling Dr. Love was the first Kiss song that I really got me hooked at the beginning. I really love that song. And when I got Alive 2, I I would play that thing over and over again. Again, and like Mark said too, that is like one of Ace's greatest solos. I have to agree. It is just one of the tastiest kind of licks and melodies that he's done in a solo. It just works so well in the song. So yeah, the Calling Dr. Love. I mean, otherwise, yes, War Machine is another big one for me, and Unholy. But yeah, Calling Dr. Love was the really first one for me that I identified Gene with that song.
Wow.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah,
take that.
I go the evil route.
Nice.
When I think Gene, and I always think his Cookie Monster vocals have to be present as well. No proper singing aloud. But I think for me, it's I don't see Almost Human as much, but God of Thunder for me, is it. And to me, that's an equal of Unholy. Unholy is probably number 2 in terms of the video as well. Was just so freaking evil, even at that age and in that era where we started to get a lot more dangerous stuff in terms of music and what was going on. But that was a badass video. To this day, I just wish they'd done a video for Hate, because that would have one-upped Unholy without a doubt. But give me Evil Gene. Forget Ladies Man Gene, because that just makes me kind of giggle. But there you go. All right, I think we'll leave that there this week. That's just a bunch of topics from the board. There's a lot more where those came from, obviously. It's just more fun to do. This is the KissFAQ podcast. Let's go to the KissFAQ and give our take on what people are talking about there. I've had to ban 14 people this week. So
wow.
Only Thursday.
Oh, naughty people.
There's some banty people out there.
Yeah, the ban hammer has been moist this week, so.
That's moist.
Yeah, and
oiled it well.
Well, that mail call in the middle of the show is apparently I have ordered too many copies of Kiss World, and that's a second copy of the yellow vinyl one. So I think we'll give one away on the next episode, because I don't need.
Very nice.
I obviously misordered. I meant to get the black one. So all right, that's it for now. So from myself, from Lonnie, from Mark, from Ken, thanks for listening, and we will see you next time. And don't forget to enter that contest to win a free copy of Classic Rock with Mark's favorite album on the cover. Bye for now. Thank you for spending time listening to the KissFAQ podcast today. All sales are final. There are no refunds. If you'd like, look us up on Facebook or come over to the KissFAQ message board and discuss the topic we've broadcast today. Don't forget to rate us on iTunes, Spreaker, or wherever you've listened to the show. We hope you'll join us again.